Heavy doors groaned open at the far end of the corridor. Director Otto Weiss emerged, surrounded by aides carrying stacks of reports and sedation ledgers. The man looked assembled from exhaustion and bureaucracy in equal measure. His uniform remained immaculate despite the chaos around him. Silver spectacles perched low on a narrow nose, and deep purple bruising sagged beneath both eyes. He stopped when he saw the cracked containment glass. "For God's sake," he whispered. Freud exhaled smoke towards the ceiling. "You're welcome," he said. Weiss pinched the bridge of his nose hard enough to blanch the skin. "One day, Dr. Freud, I hope you greet me without property damage. One day, I hope your ministry hires people capable of recognizing a psychic predation event before it starts clawing through reinforced glass," Freud replied. Jung stepped between them. "You requested us together," he said evenly. "That alone suggests desperation." Weiss studied the two old rivals with an expression caught between calculation and naked relief. Two aging scholars, one carrying impossible theories like sharpened knives, the other wearing mysticism like armor. Still, the most dangerous minds in Europe. "Come with me," he said quietly. The deeper chambers beneath the ministry resembled a bunker built beneath a cathedral. Thick copper arches curved overhead. Sacred symbols from a dozen religions had been hammered directly into concrete walls beside mathematical formulas and psychiatric diagrams. Freud noticed the mixture immediately. "You finally allowed theologians into the building," Freud said. "We ran out of atheists," Weiss replied. That earned the faintest grunt of amusement from Freud. They entered a circular meeting chamber dominated by a massive map of Vienna pinned across one wall. Red markings spread through the city like infected veins. Manifestation outbreaks, containment failures, entire districts crossed out in black ink. The room smelled faintly of incense beneath the antiseptic. Freud frowned. "That's new," he said. A woman stood near the far end of the table, arranging documents into careful stacks. She wore the black habit and veil of a religious order, though a heavy traveling coat, damp with melted snow and streaked with something that might have been ash, lay folded over the chair behind her. A silver crucifix rested at her throat. Auburn hair showed at her temples. Her face was sharp and intelligent, and tired in the way of someone who had recently seen something that permanently rearranged their understanding of the world. Late 30s, perhaps. A fresh scar climbed one side of her neck and disappeared beneath her collar. She looked up as they entered. "Dr. Freud, Dr. Jung." English accent. Educated. Calm enough to unsettle people. Weiss gestured towards her. "Sister Beatrice Vale, Order of St. Bartholomew, London chapter." Freud removed the cigar from his mouth slowly. "A nun. Formerly an investigative correspondent for the Illustrated London News," she said, without particular emphasis. "And before that, a researcher at the British Museum. I covered the Whitechapel manifestation incident for the papers." She paused. "Then I stopped covering it from the outside." Jung watched her with quiet attention. "You survived Whitechapel," he said. A shadow crossed her face. "Survival feels generous as a description," she replied. She offered her hand first to Jung, then Freud. Jung shook it readily. Freud hesitated a fraction before doing the same. Her grip surprised him, firm and grounded. No tremor in it. Most people meeting Freud either idolized him or blamed him for civilization's psychological unraveling, occasionally both at once. Sister Beatrice simply observed him. "You disapprove," Freud said. She considered him for a moment before answering. "Disapproval carries too much certainty. I came to Vienna because certainty started tearing holes in London." Freud tilted his head slightly. "That sounds poetic enough to belong to Jung." "And poetry currently eats people in Whitechapel," she replied evenly. Jung's mechanical lens clicked softly as it adjusted to focus on her. "What happened there?" Jung said. Beatrice removed her gloves carefully. Thin white scars crossed her knuckles and wrists in branching patterns, like hairline cracks in porcelain. She said, A children's hospital suffered a manifestation event 6 months before I entered the order. The staff believed a feverish orphan girl possessed prophetic visions. Newspapers spread the story, my newspaper among others. Priests arrived, spiritualists arrived. She looked at her own hands. By the second week, half the district dreamt about her nightly. Freud's eyes narrowed. A shared psychic fixation, he said. Yes, eventually people stopped dreaming about the child. Her voice lowered. They began dreaming of what the child feared, she said. The room went quiet. What did she fear? Jung asked. Beatrice met his gaze directly. She said that God had forgotten her. Even Freud lost some color in that. The manifestations changed afterward, she continued. They acquired structure, intention, almost theological in shape. Rooms filled with eyes that never blinked. People fused together while praying. One constable swore London streets rearranged themselves nightly to guide pedestrians towards abandoned churches. Weiss crossed himself unconsciously. Freud noticed. Interesting, he said. Masked hysteria, he said, though less confidently than was his custom. Perhaps at first, Beatrice replied. Then the hospital basement developed impossible dimensions. Jung's attention sharpened. You entered it, he said. A faint smile touched her lips. You sound as though you expected otherwise, she said. I sound curious, Jung replied. I brought 3 priests, 2 police inspectors, and a mathematician from King's College. Her expression dimmed again. Only Father Marcus and I returned. I was still writing the account of what we found when Chesterton came to see me. Freud's eyes sharpened. G.K. Chesterton, the journalist? The Catholic apologist? He said. The same. She folded her hands on the table. He arrived 2 days after the incident, before I'd spoken to anyone. He said he dreamed a staircase descending beneath London Hospital, and that someone was writing about it alone in a flat on Whitechapel Road. She paused. He was right on both counts. Jung leaned forward slightly. What did he say to you? She replied, He told me the modern world has made a theological error and dressed it up as a scientific one. That we had decided human beings could be fully explained, that consciousness was a mechanism, and that mystery was merely ignorance awaiting correction. She looked toward the map of Vienna. He said a mind fully closed against mystery becomes something else, something that can only consume. Freud scoffed softly. A romancer's diagnosis, he said. He also said, Beatrice continued, as though Freud hadn't spoken, that the thing that we had found in the basement was feeding on exactly the kind of minds that believed in nothing existed, but what could be classified and filed away. That certainty in sufficient concentration becomes a prison, and prisons, when left long enough in the dark, develop their own residents. A short silence fell. That sounds, Jung said slowly, considerably less like theology, considerably more like what we found in Prague last month. Yes, Beatrice said. I thought so too. Freud studied her for a long moment. The steadiness in her, the particular quality of someone who had been frightened completely through and come out somewhere quieter on the other side. And then you entered a convent, he said, after Whitechapel. I entered a convent because the Order's archives contained 40 years of field documentation on symbolic manifestations events across Europe, because their investigators have been working on this problem longer than the ministry has existed. She looked at him plainly. And because Father Marcus, before he died, said I had been writing about the shape of darkness for long enough, and that it was time for me to learn how to carry a light. The room was silent again. Then Weiss opened a thick folder at the center of the table. Inside lay photographs, distorted bodies, rooms folded impossibly inward, a church whose interior dimensions exceeded its exterior structure by nearly a mile, and at the bottom a massive circular doorway carved from red stone deep beneath Vienna. Every photograph of the doorway appeared slightly different, as though reality struggled to remember it consistently. Weiss spoke quietly. 3 nights ago, Workers excavating abandoned imperial tunnels uncovered this beneath the city. Freud's stomach tightened. He recognized the symbols etched around the archway, not because he had seen them in any text, but because he had been dreaming of them repeatedly for years and written them down each morning in a locked notebook, and he had told himself that they contained nothing worth examining. Beatrice noticed a change in his face. "You've seen it," she said. Freud stared at the photograph. "Yes," he replied. Jung stepped closer beside him. "In dreams?" he said. Freud nodded once. The room felt colder. Below them, far beneath the building and the cobblestones and the forgotten catacombs and the dark compressed weight of centuries, something enormous shifted in its sleep. And somewhere in the dark beneath Vienna, a door continued opening. No one at the table spoke. They were all listening, though none of them could have said exactly what they were listening for.